In the misty town of Fern Creek, where pines whispered ancient prayers, and the sky often wore a shawl of clouds, there stood a small diner at the corner of Main and Orchard called Abigail's Table. It was the kind of place where the bell above the door jingled like a memory. The smell of cinnamon rolls clung to your clothes, and the regulars all knew each other's favorite orders. But if you'd never stepped inside, your eyes would have been drawn to the back corner booth. Tucked beneath a frosted window glowing with golden light, it looked like any other booth, except for one peculiar thing. There was always a single empty chair, always a freshly set place, a white napkin folded just so, a sparkling clean plate, a neatly aligned fork and knife, and a glass of water filled to the brim, replaced every few hours without fail. And above it, mounted on the wooden beam, was a simple sign painted in cursive script, reserved for him. Now, tourists would whisper, kids pointed, some chuckled. "Who's him?" they'd ask. Maria, the waitress, would just smile and say, "Ask Miss Abigail." And if you caught Abigail Monroe on a soft afternoon when the pie was cooling and the sun hit just right, you might hear a story. But you'd have to sit down because it wasn't short. You see, Abigail had been a single mother raising her son Lucas, who was her joy, her song, her reason to believe in goodness after a long, hard life. Lucas was the kind of young man who walked elderly neighbors' groceries home and played piano for the church choir, even when no one showed up. At 17, he took a part-time job in the next town to help his mom keep the lights on at the diner. It was December, snowfall season, and roads in the mountains were sharp and slick. On the night of December 12th, Abigail was kneading biscuit dough when the phone rang. A sheriff's voice cracked through the line like frozen branches. A drunk driver, a patch of black ice, a bridge. Lucas never felt a thing, they said. He was gone before the ambulance arrived. Abigail dropped to her knees in the kitchen, hands still coated in flour, and let out a sound no one heard except God. The days after were a fog. She didn't sleep. She didn't eat. She ran the diner like a ghost. People came with hugs and platitudes. "He's in a better place." "God needed another angel." "This too shall pass." She smiled and nodded, but inside, her heart had gone quiet. She stopped praying, stopped singing at church, stopped hoping. And every night before bed, she whispered toward the ceiling, "If you were real, you could have stopped it, but you didn't, so don't expect me to pretend you're still welcome here." Well, it was bitter cold, the kind that gnawed through sweaters and numbed fingertips. Abigail had just finished mopping the floor when the bell above the door jingled softly. She looked up, and there he was, a man she'd never seen before, mid-40s, tall, with gentle eyes like worn leather, and a beard dusted with snow. His coat looked older than he was, and his boots squeaked with water from the melting slush outside. He walked straight to the back booth and sat across from the empty chair. Maria asked if he wanted a menu. He said no, just black coffee. When Abigail brought it herself, he looked up at her, not in a way that studied her face, but in a way that read her soul. And then he spoke. "You've been carrying grief like a stone in your chest, but I want you to know he wasn't alone. The moment your son left this world, he stepped into arms already waiting for him." The tray slipped from her hands and shattered. Coffee soaked the floor. Everyone turned, but the man's voice didn't rise, didn't waver. Abigail fell to her knees, tears pouring as freely as the rain outside. "How did you know?" she whispered. He gently placed his hand over his heart. "Because I was there. I've always been here, even when you asked me to leave." When she looked up again, the booth was empty. No footprints in the snow, no bill, just the scent of frankincense, and a peace that made her chest feel like it could finally breathe again. That night, she cleaned the booth, wiped the chair, filled a glass of water, and hung the sign, "Reserved for him." And every day since, she's kept it that way. Over the years, the empty chair has become a refuge. A weary traveling pastor sat across from it and wept quietly, whispering, "I forgot what his voice sounded like until now." A woman battling terminal illness sat and wrote letters to her children, one by one, asking Jesus to hold them when she no longer could. A teenager, suicidal and broken, sat there on a snowy night and felt, for the first time in years, that she was not invisible. And Maria once asked Abigail why she kept setting the table for someone who never ate. And Abigail smiled, looking at the chair with glassy eyes. "Because I believe he still shows up. And even if no one sees him, people feel him. And sometimes that's enough." We look for God in thunder. We expect him in miracles, in lightning, in shouts. But more often, he comes in snow boots and soft eyes. He sits in empty chairs and listens to pain we forgot how to say out loud. He doesn't need applause, and he just needs us to leave him a seat. So the next time you're hurting, set the table, light the candle, make the space. Because even in your grief, your silence, or your disbelief, Jesus still sits beside you. You are never as alone as you think. God bless you, my friends.